Good morning, Team Alabama. We are going to continue reading The Lottery Rose. Yesterday, Georgie returned to the apartment after winning the rose bush and running around the city looking for a place to plant it. He never found it, and he came into the apartment and Steve was there. And that's where we ended. So let's find out what happens. We're ready for Chapter 3. Please read this on the Chromebook along with me. Chapter 3, page 33. When Georgie regained consciousness, the dimly lighted apartment seemed to be full of people. The first person he saw was a young woman in a nurse's uniform who leaned over him as he lay on the sofa. Bathing his head and neck, laying soft bandages across his wounds, he gave a choking gasp as he realized where he was and tried to get up. Looking wildly about the apartment to see if Steve lurked somewhere in the shadows, the nurse spoke to him quietly and made him lie down again. "Don't try to get up," she told him. "It's all right now. They're both gone, the man and the woman too." She touched his shoulder gently. "Lie still. We mustn't put any pressure on this arm." Two men came in from a group of neighboring tenants who stood in the kitchen. One was the janitor of the building. The other was a young police officer, so young an officer that he looked hardly more than a boy, only a few weeks on the job. This was his first experience with child abuse, and what he had seen left him a little white around the mouth. That's kind of an expression for he was like in shock and upset. White around the mouth. It upset him and made him disgusted and sad. The janitor was sweeping up the glass and splintered furniture. The police officer was writing on a pad of paper. "I'd like to talk to the boy before I leave." He made a questioning gesture toward the nurse. "Is it all right? Can he talk now?" She nodded. "I still have more wounds to dress before you take him to Children's Hospital. His left arm is broken. You'll have to question him, though I'm afraid he's still confused." The young policeman came over and sat beside the sofa. "Your name is Georgie Burgess, the janitor tells me. Is that right?" Georgie's lips formed a yes weakly. He stared at the young man. "And this man who beat you, what is his name?" Rennie Burgess's warning sounded in her son's ears. "You ain't hurt too bad, Georgie. You'll get over your licking soon enough. But if you ever tell on Steve, you'll be hurt like you ain't ever dreamed about. Steve won't stand for any kids telling on him." Georgie shuddered at the question. "I just got in a fight with some big kids." The policeman looked at him for a long time and finally he said, "I see, but the janitor and some of the men in the building came up here and found him beating you with the leg of a chair. Do you remember that?" Georgie didn't answer. The policeman continued, "Who is this man?" "Don't know," Georgie muttered. That was true. He had no idea who Steve really was, where he lived when he wasn't with Georgie's mother, or how he earned the money that he gave her. "Is he your father?" the policeman asked. "I don't think I got a father. This man, this woman, this Rennie Burgess." The young man flipped through some of the pages he held. "She's your mother?" "I guess so." "I don't blame you for doubting it," the policeman said in a low voice. He was silent then, watching the nurse wash blood and hair from the deep wound on Georgie's scalp. "Do you see much of this?" he asked her after a while. "Much," she answered, "and not always in the slums either." The janitor spoke up from the doorway. "Them two ought to be held liable for the damage they done around here tonight. Half killing the kid and breaking up everything in the place when they started fighting us because we come in. I don't know when I've had to clean up so much junk. I've emptied 4 cans down the chute already." A sudden memory caused Georgie to cry out. "My prize!" he screamed. "Where's my rose bush?" He turned from the nurse to the police officer, his eyes imploring each of them. Add imploring to your vocab list right now. Imploring means begging. His eyes imploring each of them to help him, begging them to help him. "Did you see my rose bush around here?" The nurse turned to the janitor quickly. "I seen a bunch of dry sticks that might have been a rose bush. Is that what he's hollering about?" Georgie tried to get up again, but the nurse held him down firmly. He turned pleading eyes to her. "Make him give it to me, lady. I want it at the grocery store. It's mine. Make him give it to me." That kid's out of his head, the janitor said sullenly. I'm not going through all that junk for no bunch of trash that he's dragged home from the grocery store. I think you'd better find his rose bush, the nurse said crisply. She looked at the two men, her lips pressed closely together. The policeman got up and walked towards the janitor. Show me where you dumped it, he said. Georgie sobbed as he and the nurse waited. He hadn't cried when she washed his wounds, not even when she lifted his broken arm, and it had hurt terribly. I didn't steal it, he told her between sobs. Honest, I didn't. I had a ticket, and the numbers on it matched. You can ask Mrs. Sims. Who is Mrs. Sims, Georgie? The checker at the grocery. She'll tell you I won it at the store. Yes, I believe you. We'll talk to Mrs. Sims after a while. The police want to talk to all the people around here who know you. The policeman returned about 10 minutes later, a battered plant in his hands. Is this your rose bush, Georgie? He asked, holding it towards the boy. Yes, it's my prize. Georgie seized the plant with his right hand and held it tightly within the curve of his arm. Unmindful of the thorns, he buried his face against it in a spasm of love and relief. The policeman watched him for a moment and then shook his head slowly. My good God Almighty, he said in a low voice. The next several days were a blur in Georgie's mind. He had a low fever which wouldn't leave, and that with the pills needed for bearing the pain of his injuries kept him only partly conscious of what was happening around him. He knew that doctors examined his hurts and took many x-ray pictures of his head and back, and that nurses changed his dressings each day, and that one nurse took the time to sprinkle water on the peat moss surrounding the roots of his rose bush. At night he slept with his good right arm hanging down beside his bed, his hand touching his prize. When he was a little better, he had a visit at the hospital from Mrs. Sims. I've been here before, but always when you were asleep, and the nurses thought that I shouldn't wake you up, she said. He noticed that her face looked a little happy. Okay, we're going to stop there, and we're going to let you pause and write down a few facts. What's happened? What are some new things that we know now? Add at least 3 new facts right here, please. Thank you.